I'm ready. Thank you very much, Jamie. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Um,
Yes.
first of all, thanks for inviting me and for hosting this, John and Jamie, and Stanis. Thanks for the insight, and Arish, thank you for your very impressive and emotional story. My name is Gerard Arink, but it's a difficult pronunciation, so it's Gerald for most people. I'm working as a volunteer for a foundation in Nepal over the past 15 years. And some two and a half years ago, I started the Pro2 Foundation, where we focused on helping the Nepali migrants who work abroad. In Nepal, there are some between 4 and 5 million people who work abroad to make some kind of money. A lot of them are working in the Middle East. And I came into contact with people who worked in Qatar, over 400,000. And leading up to the World Cup in Qatar, I did some initiatives with our foundation in the Netherlands to make their story heard and to improve their situation. And because of that, I was involved in the discussion in the Netherlands about Qatar and the World Cup, and I've learned some lessons. And last few months, I hooked up with another team in the Netherlands called Nooit Meer Qatar. It's Never Again Qatar. So we are putting again our strength together to see what we can do leading up to the 2034 World Cup in Saudi Arabia. So I would like to share with you the lessons I learned from my experience over the past 2.5 years, the Qatar World Cup, and also share some thoughts what I think the lessons we can draw from that leading up to the 2034 World Cup. I see 5 lessons to be learned from the 2022 World Cup. And the first lesson is that Qatar and FIFA, in my opinion, have won. It's a painful lesson, but it's a truth. Everything that FIFA and Qatar wanted for this World Cup, they achieved. They had a perfectly organized tournament. There were no incidents, great matches, a dream champion for them, and Qatar now is on the world map. And their strategy has worked, and that of the opponents did not. So I think we need a different strategy if we want to change anything towards the 2034 World Cup. And secondly, I think we need a different mindset, another way of thinking. And I think the most important lesson that we can draw from the 2010 awarding to Qatar is when it comes to money and power in football, everything is possible, even the unthinkable. If you think that something surely will not happen, you're 1-0 behind. Everything that seems impossible can and will happen in football nowadays. For example, we have to assume that Infantino will be appointed for life, or that the rules of the game will change to whoever wants to pay for it, or that the World Cup will forever be held in Saudi Arabia. We have to think the unthinkable. And thirdly, no one has any influence on what happens in countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, other than the rulers there themselves. Anyone from outside who tries to change something in these countries will fail, or they play into the hands of these regimes. They will join the discussion, make promises on paper, delay the process, and ultimately only do what they think they want to happen. Maintaining a dialogue, thinking that you're negotiating, I think it's useless because you have nothing to negotiate with. And in the end, your dialogue becomes an obstacle or even an excuse for protest. And fourth, time was in favor of Qatar and FIFA. The discussion on human rights and migrant workers only started in 2021. The Human Rights Organization indicated that the greatest suffering had already been behind us, and so a boycott was useless. This was fuel to the policy of non-boycotting and trying to improve matters through dialogue. And this played perfectly into the hands of FIFA and Qatar. During the dialogue, nothing happened against their wishes, and they could postpone everything until the start of the World Cup. And then all the focus turned on the tournament itself. And fifth, there was no focus or unity in the opposing of the World Cup. Not between the different countries opposing to the Qatar World Cup, and even within the individual countries themselves, there were various topics. The media also played a role here. In the Netherlands, for instance, we first discussed about compensation for migrant workers. Then we discussed about wearing a one love captaincy. Then whether our king should go to Qatar. And in the end, we talked about whether the fans could watch the games or go to Qatar. FIFA and Qatar relatively stayed out of the heat. And based on these lessons, I think a successful opposition against the FIFA or the 2034 World Cup in Saudi Arabia should include 5 elements. The first is unite. The second one is focus. The third is international approach. And the fourth is ignoring Saudi Arabia and FIFA. And last, we have to start now. With unite, I mean that as many of football stakeholders as possible should work together. I mean countries, fans, clubs, human rights organizations, unions, media, but perhaps also ex-players and associations. And with focus, I mean that there must be a clear goal based on a clear mission and vision. And with the right story behind us, in the end, we will win. By an international approach, I mean that the same message must be proclaimed in a lot of countries, by a lot of people, to the same target group, during club matches, but also during international matches and national games. Ignore Saudi Arabia and FIFA is perhaps the most important element for a successful strategy. I think we should not waste any energy in things we cannot influence. And there's a second insight why I think this element could be of decisive importance. From a purely football perspective, Saudi Arabia is just a location for a football tournament, and FIFA is just an organizing body. Thousands of football matches around the world are played each day without involvement of FIFA and Saudi Arabia. Let's focus on what we can influence. Let's organize a football tournament ourselves in the summer of 2034. And let's reinvent the World Cup. And let's reinvent FIFA. Let's reclaim our game. And last but not least, we have to start now. This means tonight. An advantage compared to the 2022 World Cup is that we have over more than 10 years for opposition. The first step has already been given by the fans of Newcastle United. They sought cooperation with other fans, other countries, sport washing experts and human rights organizations. And then Reclaim the Game was born. And I think we have a clear vision and purpose. Today's football has lost its credibility and its integrity. FIFA's awarding of the 2034 World Cup is proof of this. For many fans, football is a very important part of their lives. And in my view, football should therefore reflect those values that fans strive for in their personal life, like integrity, honesty, and equality. And in addition, fans should have an important voice in the ownership of clubs, national associations, and global representation. Sponsors, money, and power are just a mean to improve and innovate the game, and it's not a goal in itself, like it is right now. Football needs a reset, back to square one. And who can best take the initiative for this than the biggest lovers of the game, the fans? They reclaim their game. This is our vision and a mission statement. And we pursue 4 goals with it. The first one is that statutes and legislation of clubs, countries and associations must demand that countries cannot become owners of a club. And that fans always have some kind of an important voice in the ownership of a club. Secondly, we have to boycott the FIFA World Cup 2034 by at least 4 countries that have reached, let's say, the past 16 in one of the past 4 World Cups. And thirdly, we have to organize an alternative football global cup in the summer of 2024 with at least 4 countries. And fourth, establish a kind of alternative organization for regulating global football with fans and democracy as a starting point. And as a strategy, it's clear, and it consists of 4 ingredients: unite, apply pressure, have some endurance, and a call to join. We have to unite fans, media, human rights organizations, players, companies, etc. And we have to apply pressure on national associations, clubs, and companies, and on governments that they have to stop investing public money in FIFA events. And I think we have to start right now. Thanks very much for so far.